Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that I think is really fascinating. It's the whole world of mergers.
Mergers and acquisitions.
I mean, it's like this constant reshaping of the business world, right? You see these big companies joining forces.
It's a game of chess almost.
Exactly. And we're going to try to unpack why they do it, what the impacts are.
Right. The motivations and consequences, both good and bad.
For sure. So just to set the stage, when we say merger, what are we actually talking about?
Basically, it's when two or more companies decide to come together to form a single bigger company.
Right, like literally merging into one.
Exactly. So instead of competing, they join forces.
And we've got a really interesting example we want to dig into today. It's the Vodafone-Hutchison merger in Australia.
Oh, yeah. That one's a classic. It shows a lot about why these things happen.
And it really gets into the nitty-gritty of market share and all that.
For sure. I mean, why would two companies want to merge in the first place? I mean, it's not just about getting bigger for the sake of it.
Right. There's got to be some strategy involved.
Totally. Companies are looking for specific benefits like increasing their market power or...
Like that market share you mentioned, right?
Exactly. Market share is basically the percentage of a market that a particular company controls.
Okay. So like if you have 50% market share.
You're selling half of all the, let's say, smartphones in a country.
Wow. It's a lot of power.
For sure. And a bigger market share usually means more profits.
Makes sense.
So companies might merge to try to grab a bigger slice of that pie.
And in the Vodafone-Hutchison case, that was definitely a goal, right? They wanted to become a bigger player in the Australian telecom market.
Absolutely. They saw a chance to combine their resources and become more competitive.
And did it work? Did they actually increase their market share?
It's complicated. It definitely gave them a bigger footprint, but they faced some headwinds along the way.
Like what kind of headwinds?
Well, the merger attracted a lot of attention from regulators who wanted to make sure it wouldn't harm competition.
That makes sense.
And they also had to deal with the challenges of integrating two very different companies.
Oh, yeah. Merging all those systems and employees and everything can't be easy.
Not at all. Plus, the telecom market is super competitive, so even with a merger, it's tough to guarantee success.
So even though they had these grand plans, the outcome wasn't a slam dunk.
Right. It's a reminder that mergers are complex beasts. Lots of factors at play.
Speaking of complexity, what happens to the employees when two companies merge? I mean, is it all good news?
Honestly, it's a mixed bag.
Like sometimes people lose their jobs.
Yeah, sadly, that's often the case.
Because they don't need two people doing the same job anymore.
Exactly. Companies often look to streamline operations and eliminate redundancies after a merger.
So that can be a pretty stressful time for employees, wondering if they'll still have a job.
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest downsides of mergers.
But I guess it's not always bad news for employees, right?
No, not always. Sometimes mergers create new opportunities.
Like how?
Well, if the merged company expands into new markets or develops new products, that can lead to new jobs and career paths.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Right. It's a mixed bag, and the impact on employees really depends on the specific circumstances.
Makes sense. But what about the impact on consumers? I mean, do mergers affect the prices we pay or the choices we have?
That's a great question. The impact on consumers can vary widely depending on the type of merger.
Wait, there are different types of mergers?
Oh, yeah, there are several. The Vodafone-Hutchison merger was a horizontal merger.
Horizontal.
Yeah, that means two companies in the same industry who are direct competitors are combining.
I see.
And that kind of merger can raise some red flags for consumers because it could lead to less competition.
And less competition could mean higher prices.
Potentially, yes.
Or fewer choices.
That's also possible.
So horizontal mergers can have some downsides for consumers if the merged company gains too much power.
Exactly. Regulators are always watching out for that, trying to prevent monopolies.
Makes sense. But you said there are other types of mergers.
Right. There are vertical mergers, which involve companies at different stages of the supply chain combining.
Oh, interesting.
And there are conglomerate mergers, which involve companies in totally unrelated industries coming together.
Wow. So it's a whole complex ecosystem of mergers happening out there.
It is. And understanding the different types can help you make sense of the potential impacts, both good and bad.
This is making me think about something you mentioned earlier. Economies of scale.
Yes.
Can you remind me what that means again?
Sure. Economies of scale are basically about getting more efficient as you get bigger.
Like the bigger you are, the cheaper it is to produce things.
Exactly. Because you can spread your costs over a larger output and often negotiate better deals with suppliers.
So it's like buying in bulk, you get a discount.
Exactly. And that's a major reason why companies merge. They're looking for those economies of scale.
But, and this is just me thinking out loud, but couldn't that lead to less innovation? Like, if you're already so big and efficient, why bother taking risks on new ideas?
That's a really interesting point, and it's a big debate surrounding mergers.
Like, some people think mergers could stifle creativity.
Absolutely. While mergers can lead to short-term gains in efficiency and lower prices, some argue that in the long run, they can lead to less innovation and fewer choices for consumers.
Wow, so it's a real trade-off.
It is. There's no easy answer.
It makes you realize how important it is to understand these dynamics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, mergers affect all of us, whether we realize it or not.
For sure. They shape the business landscape, impact our jobs, and influence the products and services we have access to.
So staying informed is key.
Absolutely. Mergers are a powerful force, and it's crucial to understand how they work.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive, but I want to leave you with something to ponder.
Okay.
We've seen how these mega mergers can lead to huge companies with lots of power. So the question is, what happens if this trend continues? Will we end up with just a handful of giant corporations controlling everything?
Interesting question. And what would that mean for competition, innovation, and ultimately for us as consumers?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of business.
See ya.
Bye.